Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today, I am so lucky to have a remarkable man as our guest. Jose Pereira was wrongly detained and held captive in Venezuela for nearly 5 years, from November 21st, 2017 to October 1st, 2022. His only crime is that he's an American. Before he was taken hostage, he spent 35 years as an oil company executive and CEO of CITGO Petroleum, a US based refineries complex and broad gas station distribution center. Pereira's story has since evolved into a movement, changing the narrative of what it takes to bring the wrongful made home and how to find peace following such a traumatic experience. Having gone through his hostage experience into a hostile foreign country, it changed his perception of how to measure accomplishments and success. The combination of both his professional expertise and unique lived experience has led him to the desire to help others in their own journey to success. And he is the author of From Hero to Villain, My True Story of Citgo. Welcome to the show, Jose. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having Kelly. Thank you for having me here.
So, just to begin for our listeners, you may not be aware of your experience and work. I just want you to share a little bit about your professional background and then that incredible personal journey for you that started on November 21st, 2017.
Okay, thank you. Well, my professional background, I'm a finance guy. I did a BA in finance back in Venezuela in the 1985, 1984. I finished. I began to work in PDVSA, that is the national oil company of Venezuela, in 1985. And like 3 or 4 years after I did my MBA here in Houston, here in Florida, sorry, in Florida. And I flew back to Venezuela after I finished and continued my career in PDVSA. And I did a long career in the oil and gas. And like 15 years ago, I was transferred here to the US. I live today in Houston, and I began to work in CITGO Petroleum, that's a U.S.-based oil and gas company that belongs to PDVSA. So I did all my career during 35 years in PDVSA. And being here in CITGO, that, as I said, is an affiliate of PDVSA, I began to escalate position, and at the end of my career, I became the CEO of the company. So when my hostage situation happened, I was the CEO, and that was in 2017. So it's gonna be 7 years ago in a couple of months. Um, and literally, I was kind of in the panic in my career when my hostage situation happened, but that will be the second part of the interview.
So, so you basically on November 21st, 2017, can you tell our audience what happened?
Yeah. Eh, as I said, I was at that moment, I was the CEO of the company, and because the company belongs to Venezuela, because the way it works is that PDVSA was actually it's not was the crude oil supplier of CITGO that has the refiners here in the US that refine the crude oil and have the gases station. People maybe are familiar that CITGO has more than 6,000 gas stations all over across the US. Okay,
Yep.
free refining. Uh, and but that year, and maybe the audience are not aware, but Venezuela, unfortunately, today has a communist regime. And, and that year, they were having a lot of issues with that regime and the Trump administration here in the US. And in August of that year, they began to impose sanctions to the country. When I began to see all the thing that was going, I talked to my wife and I said, I had 35 years in the company. I'm going to get retired. So I flew to Venezuela to talk with my boss, and I asked him that I wanted to get retired. And
Hmm.
back and forward, at the end he accepted my retirement, but he told me to give him 4 months to find my replacement. So I came back here. That was October 2017, and 1 month after, I was in my retirement mode, ready to get retired. I was in a movie with my wife, and I received a phone call. And the phone call was asking me to go to an urgent business trip to Venezuela to make a presentation because we were by that time revamping a refinery in Aruba, the Aruba Island.
Mhm.
And I flew to Caracas to that meeting, and the meeting resulted to be an ambush. And because all this situation that was going between Venezuela and the US, I never thought that that could affect me because I was not a politician, not at all. But
Yeah.
we were caught in the middle of that geopolitical thing that was going on, and we became the political pawns of the situation. We, because I flew with my 5,000, and we were six guys. That's why at the end, the situation began to escalate, and the press put us like a brand. We became the CITGO Six. That's how the press called us because we were accused to be American spies, and we stayed during all that time of negotiation for 5 years. Our situation
Yeah.
is 5 years.
And during that 5 years, what was your daily practice to just manage trauma? I mean, it is trauma that you are in that situation. So how day to day, how did you and your fellow colleagues, really manage that and get through the day?
Well, to understand our case, and that's why I put a lot of details in my book because our story is not it's a very complex story because as we became the political pawn in the situation, uh, our situation was affected depending how the negotiations were going.
Hmm.
First year, the negotiations were not so good. It went so bad issues that both ambassadors were recalled. So can you imagine when two countries recall their ambassador? It's because the things are going bad. So
Yeah.
they were recalled, the two ambassadors. So there were no direct negotiations. So our first year, the first thing that happened to us is we were separated the six. We were totally separated. We were put each of us in solitary confinement. I myself was in a solitary confinement my first year, and I lost the sense of the time because I was confined. I I
Hmm.
I, I didn't have no contact with the world. I didn't know what was going on. I had no clue what was going on because even didn't have contact with my family. Nothing. I didn't know what was going on. I The only thing that I was aware that we became the pawns of the situation, and we saw that was really bad. Can you imagine becoming a spy in a communist regime? The
Oh,
probability of you dying there and stay forever is really high. So the first year dealing with the trauma was very difficult, very difficult because being alone without only with your thoughts, your mind is all over the place.
right.
And the first thought were not good. The first thought that we had were not at all good because we were really even having suicidal thoughts because we were thinking that we would not survive. So I was literally thinking to take my life off. But the human nature has something incredible that in those seriously you can find its strengths, and you don't know how. You don't know how. And I begin to think in my family. I begin to think in my life and in my family. And I said, hey, but you had to fight for them. And that I cannot say when that happened because it's difficult for me to, the line of time. But at some point we began to think that we needed to come back. That we needed to come back, and we needed to come back, not only coming back, we needed to come back sane in one piece, having mental, physical, and spiritual health. And like as I said, like 1 year after, one day I received a visit. It was a commission of the UN that flew
Okay.
to Venezuela. The UN has a commission that is called the Arbitrary Detention Commission. They flew to Venezuela and they interview us. And when they interview us, they saw that we were really in very bad shape. I didn't know how I was because you don't see yourself, but I
Right.
lost 100 pounds.
But yeah.
I've gone through pneumonia, bronchitis, scabies. I was in really, really very bad shape. And the other guys too, because I learned that day that the other guys were there because I didn't know where they were, by the way. They never
Mhm.
told us where they were. And I knew these guys were in other rooms beside me because they interviewed them and they told me that they were surviving. And this guy began to make a lot of pressure to the Venezuelan government and said, this guys are dying. This guy needs food and need medicine.
Yeah.
Problem that was happening about that time in Venezuela, now we're in 2018, 1 year after.
Mhm.
The sanctions the US administration had imposed are really, really having severe effects in Venezuela because there was lack of food and lack of medicine. So the food and the medicine disappeared of the country. So what this guy said, authorized, was that our family begin to provide us the food. So so the decision family took was that my eldest son, he was living in Aruba by the time. He was working in the oil and gas in the project of Aruba. He resigned and he moved to Colombia. And from Colombia, he began to provide me food. So they found somebody in Venezuela that he received the food. They cook and they send it to the prison to me every 2 or 3 days. And when I began to receive that food, we were put together the six. So now we are the six together 1 year after. And that was like a game changer when we saw the six because, now we're together. Now we're having food. And now we begin to be allowed to begin to receive books.
Yeah.
They to have a small radio. So now I'm more aware about what was going on. And I did something also more risky. I began to smuggle letters with my wife. So I begin to when I was returning the trash cans, I in the, I created like a double bottom of the cans, and I began to put letters there. And she began to reply to me. So we began to smuggle letters between her and me, and we stayed doing that during 3 years. And and my book is based on. So if you see my book that is here, this book is based on those letters. So part of the what is in the book is based on those letters that when I came back, my wife have compiled, and it became like a memoir because I was telling her the situation, what I was feeling. She was giving me indication that how the negotiation were going. So I began to get more and more aware about the situation, and that was a really game changer. When I was knowing what was going on, I began to have a real understanding of the situation. And even it took 5 years, now we're having something that is hope because
Yes.
we have hope. And that hope and being the other five guys with me now. By the way, we were not friends. We were not friends when we got together. Really is where we really begin to know ourselves. And
Mhm.
it was something incredible because we discovered that we had a lot of commonality. It was a kind of weird situation knowing that the six of us, all of us has more than 30 years of career. All of us has more than 30 years married. All of us have a wonderful family. Well, we have a lot of things in common. And
Yeah.
we're bond when we discovered that we had all when we I knew that one of them had 31 years married, the other has 37. I had 35. The other has 33. So we were like a wow, because what is the probability that the six guys that are choosing random had that probability to have the same behavior? For me was the hands of God. That,
Well,
each
I,
cherry each cherry pick.
yeah. And I mean, just that the grounding of having those type of relationships, I mean, that in itself must have created a great deal of hope because you have this family that you have created and nurtured over the years that you want to get back to. So I mean, to
Oh,
have that melody is beautiful.
let me tell you, that was really, really, really today. I clearly see the signs of God, because when we discovered that and we begin to talk about our family, one of them had two kids, the other had three, I had three, the other had five, and their kids. It was amazing that all the kids of us were who took care of us. They created a foundation called the Bring Our Family Home Campaign. Our kids,
Oh, beautiful.
the wife, our wife, they supported them, but who cheered all the process were our kids. They did amazing things. My son, he began to take care 100% of his time to me, because he was not only providing me the food, he began to take care of the lawyers in Venezuela. He began to take care with the lawyers here in the US. He became the focal point with the US government for all the negotiation. Uh, the ambassador of Venezuela that was recalled, he moved to Colombia. So now my son is meeting with him in Colombia. So, so he was the direct contact for the negotiation. And what's happened? Full time job dedicated to me. And and the other kids of my colleague, the same, the same. They begin, all of them, to go to the press, begin to go to the Congress, begin to go to the U.S. government. Uh, they did a real big campaign. If you go to the press during 2018, 2019, 2020, you will find a lot of news about our case. I believe that there was no major outlet that they were not interviewed. They went to all the major outlets that are here in the US and even all over the world. So they did a big campaign. And that's where the press put out the name CITGO Sick. That's why my book is called The True Story of the CITGO Sick, because it's my story. Because we became like a brand. We began to joke that everybody was calling us the Single Six. So we didn't have face. We were the Single Six. We were like a band, a rock band. And when I came back, I discovered that, well, our case was kind of really famous, but nobody knew me. Nobody knew who was Jose Pereira. So I decided to begin to talk to first that people know who I was. But now that people know that I was one of the Circle Six, but I discovered that first they had created this foundation. They did a, a, a mural in Washington. There's in Washington, in Georgetown, a mural with our faces, and they did that campaign with other families of other Americans that are captured in other countries. So the foundation, they came people, they have families in Afghanistan, in Russia, in China, in Syria, in Cuba, in all these, in North Korea, in all these, evil countries, they have hostage. So all the family begin to gather together, and they create this wonderful foundation that today is one of the most recognized here in the US, that Bring Our Family Home campaign.
That is amazing. But I mean, just the love of your children, that could create such a powerful movement.
And
That's incredible.
and today, the the unfortunate family, they still are having people in other countries. They are running the campaign. The president of the campaign today is a lady that her husband has more than 12 years in the Middle East.
Mhm.
Yeah, more than 12 years. And there's a mother of a journalist that here is from here from Houston that has also 12 years in Syria. There are guys that are in Iran with more than 7 years. There's a guy that had more than 11 years in China. There is a lady with more than 9 years in Cuba. A lot of cases that I begin to get connected, and and all the foundations that today here they just work in this area, they do advocacy for the household community. I'm supporting them. I have collaborated with them. I have writing articles. I have been doing interviews with them. I went on a fundraising event with them. So I have been supporting. And by the way, part of my the proceeds of my book are going to support those foundations because they are wonderful foundation. By the way, yesterday was the birthday of one of the champion of one of the foundation. There are also people that have gone through this situation, that created foundation to support others. So it's a big movement, really. Now,
And I guess with the, so much global political unrest, to have something like a resource for people who are experiencing what your family experience, so that they're not alone and that you can provide them with hope, but, for the days ahead. That's it's an incredibly important resource for these days, for these tumultuous days in the world.
yeah, we do every end of May, beginning of June every year. Sometimes in July in Washington, there is run. It's called the Hostage Week. So all these foundations they work in this area, they got together and do like an event during a whole week. So all the former hostages go there. I have gone 2 times. I,
Yeah.
and it's incredible because you know the people in person, people that are going through this situation.
Yeah.
This, for example, I couldn't meet some of the families that people are having problem with hostage in the Middle East. And I met a priest that had some nurse that they are hosted in Haiti. And and you know other former hostage. So now you are connected with them. You can, so 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 you discover there are a lot of commonalities because this is something called the hostage diplomacy. Okay.
Okay.
And it's a very sophisticated technique of do diplomacy that these evil countries try. So it's a kind of a copy paste. So when you talk with them, what they go through is the same thing you went through because they it's a replica of because what these evil countries try to do is they take you, they put you in a sham trap, they leverage you, they try to break you, because if they break you, they ask you to beg to get released. So they can leverage you and they can find things. For
Right.
example, we came back to a prisoner swap of the two nephews of the president of Venezuela.
I read that it was that negotiation that you were allowed to be freed and sent back home to your family, and that
If that hasn't happened, you never come back. You never come back because it is a negotiation between two countries.
yeah.
It's
And
beyond.
and so you were released on October 1st, 2022.
Mhm.
So that would give you 1,775 days in
Mm.
captivity. Tell us about that moment and tell us about that day for you, that when you were released. Tell us about the moment when you saw your family again after so long.
Well, we that day was a surprise, but we were aware that could happen in any moment because we were already having, like, 1 year before we received the first visit of the ambassador Roger Carson, that is today is still in charge of the special presidential office for hostage affairs. That was an organization that was created in 2019 by the U.S. Congress and appointed by the U.S. government and today is a high rank officer because he has a, a rank as a subsecretary of State Department. So he's a high rank officer. Well,
Yeah.
this he was appointed by Trump, but he was ratified by Biden. So the good news is there has been continuity. So he visited us in October, no, in November or December 2021, 1 year before we were released. So he did the first visit was the first face-to-face negotiation between the US and the Venezuelan government. When we saw him there, because we had like a 2-hour meeting with him, when he introduced himself, he said what was going on. We knew that we were going to come back in some moment because we said these negotiations is going to lead to some.
Yep.
So 3 months after, in March of 2022, he came back again in his second visit. And during that visit, he could release one of us. He released one. So now we are five there, and one was released. And he came back 3 months after in May, and he tried to release another one, but he was not able because these negotiations are difficult. If something is so difficult that because it's geopolitical, so anything that goes wrong, immediately negotiation are stopped. So something went wrong. I'm not gonna say it here in the book. I give detail of that, but that thing that went wrong didn't allow him to bring nobody. That was May. So in October 1st, we received the visit of somebody, one of the guard, said that asked us to dress up to go to the office of the director, and we saw that he was coming for his fourth visit. And when we went to the office of the director, we saw a lot of people there and taking photos and the doctors and beginning to make us tested. And they told us, you're going to be released. So they put us handcuffed, they put it in an armored truck, and then we saw when we were heading to the airport, the airport. So we said, okay, this is happening. And for me, it was incredibly funny that when we arrived to the airport, we went to the PDVSA hangar and we came back in a PDVSA plane. I know this plane because I flew all my life those planes. Before coming to the US, I used those planes because when I was working in Venezuela, I flew every week in those planes because I was living in a town that was like a half hour from plane from Caracas. So every Friday I flew in those planes. So I knew very well those planes. So I came
Mhm.
back in a PDVSA plane.
Mhm.
So but this guy told us that we were going to have a 1.5 hour flight, and then we were guessing where we were heading because from Venezuela to Houston is 5 hours. So
Yeah.
we said 1.5 hours. Where we going to land? We finally landed in a Caribbean island called San Vicente in Grenada, in the middle of nowhere, and there is where we did the prisoner swap. So the plane landed there, and then there's where they did the swap. So we were swapping a Caribbean island. And so the two nephews of Maduro, he went to the Venezuelan plane, and we went to the U.S. plane. So when we were flying back here to the U.S., we still had to wait like more hours because we were in the international airspace, and we were not safe until we crossed the U.S. space. So we stayed like 2 hours flying in the middle of in like a twilight zone. Everybody
Yeah.
ends because it was a tense moment. 2 hours can happen.
Yeah, it must have been,
It was
scary. Thing.
nobody was talking. Everybody was silent, looking the time. Trying to do it fast. And like 2 hours after, the captain of the plane came out and said, "We can announce that we have crossed the American space. Now we're in a safe space." So that was something right.
Woman.
To yell, sing, cry. And then we stayed like 1.5 more hour. I was sitting beside me was the ambassador because he came personally to rescue us. Okay. By the way, he does it with all the people that are coming back. You will always see he's a very tall guy with beard. His name
Yeah.
is, and you will see him when you go to the press. All the people have been released. You will always see that guy. He's an awesome guy. We call him Captain America.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Captain America was sitting beside me, and he announced me that uh, in that moment was announced to our family that we were freed and we were secure. And so the President Biden did a Zoom call with our wife, and he personally announced it to them. And when the ambassador told him, okay, the president may talk with your wife, I told him, can I talk with my wife? And he gave me his phone, and I called my wife. So when I called her, I remember I told him, "Hey, mommy, I'm here." And he said, "Yeah, I know. The president told me." So we landed in a military base in San Antonio, Texas. So we landed there because today this is a protocol that is followed. That every person that is released go to San Antonio. There is a program called PISA, PISA. That is a post isolation decompression program,
Yeah,
and you're treated by psychologists, therapists, and whatever. And you stay during 10 days there. We stayed the 10 days there, and after 10 days, I came back to the house, and the rest is a story.
that must have been such a moment that you just walk through the door of your home and to know that you are safe and your
Well,
home.
came to my home, all my because my all my family was there. Okay, but my second son, he didn't go to Wade Me in San Antonio because he was organizing the reception here. And when I came back, they received me with with that song of Queen, we are the champions. We are the champions. And yeah, it was really emotional, really
And
emotional.
I recently talked to someone just about resilience, and I know you are the definition of resilient. And he talked about the gifts of desperation, which I thought was just a profound way of describing it because um, I didn't understand the power or importance of hope until I absolutely didn't have anything else to grasp on except hope. And so I'm just wondering if you can kind of talk about gifts that came from your difficult experience. So you look back and reflect back on that incredible, difficult journey. Um, what could you bring forward now that when you look at it, you say, yeah, this is a gift that came from that hard.
Well, let me tell you, I have a coaching program based on and my coaching program is called Life Build for a Survivor Guide. And I basically talk about how you can overcome adversity doing several things that we did there. I have a speech eh, where I talk that. I have a speech called From Captivity to Freedom, where I literally talk about this. And this for me is my personal experience and it's testimony. And I'm a guy today very connected to my church, and I have the opportunity to give my testimony. And and for me, my biggest takeaway that first that the hope is everything. The day you lose hope, everything is lost. So the hope is so important. But most important than the hope is the faith, having faith, because I was not a man of, I was a guy that born in a Catholic family coming from a Catholic country, but was not a religious guy.
Mhm.
But when we were put together, this is something that also we discovered. All of us were Catholic except one of us that he praised Buddhism. But
Mhm.
pray, we begin to read the Bible, we begin to have a lot of revelations, and that gave us a base. When we discovered that the God was with us there and that He was protected us, so it changed. And the other thing is the support of the family, have knowing what every time the food came for us was not only the food, was a sign that our family was taking care of us.
Yeah,
It was that bag of food represented the love of our family. But
absolutely.
so that the food, of course, was food for you, but was food for our soul. That we knew that our family was taking care of us, and they did it during the last 4 years. I never during 4 years had lack of nothing. If I needed some medicine, that 2 days after I had the medicine. If I need anything, 2 days after I had it there. They were really taking care of me.
That's beautiful. So you now use and you talked about your program, Life Pills for Survivor Guide, LPSG. I absolutely love that. And I just, from your experience, I just was wondering, does that message, so that translates, your message translates both to, a more professional corporate message for leadership, but it also translates to people's personal lives. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, correct. Because it's universal. I decided to go to the corporate side because I come from that world. And,
Right.
and and let me tell you, there has been a evolving process. When I came back, I didn't want to know nothing about corporate. So I was like, I didn't. But at some point, I said, Jose, you come from that world. You know there. You have been there. I was a CEO of a company, so I know how all the struggles that a CEO can have. So what I decided is I combined my previous experience with this horrible experience I went through, but what for me was a lesson of
Mm.
survivor. And and
Yeah.
and and I put together. That's why I decided to become a leadership and resilience coach, because for me these two things are very tied. You cannot be a true leader if you're not a resilient. So these are to be there is a perfect correlation. Those guys that are resilient are the true leaders. The people that always are bouncing back and moving on, going forward, inspiring others, being a model. These are the leaders. And this is that you can discover, because this is the other thing. I discovered that you had that inner force. I didn't know how I did it, but it exploded. When you discover that you have that inner force, and again, that inner force comes from God, because you have that connection. We are creatures of God. So when you
Yeah.
have connection, you can do anything. You can do anything. That's why the way you discover that people do incredible things. That you say, how this guy did that? Is because that is the human nature. And
Ex-
everybody can do it.
Everybody can do it. What would you say in your work are some of the most common roadblocks that people erect for themselves that prevent them from getting to this resilient self? I mean,
People
I'm
are haunted of
yeah,
beliefs. People are haunted of their own beliefs. Sometimes the people don't think that they have that capacities. That
yep,
sometimes the people when in a leader position, they isolate themselves. This is the other thing. You create that as isolation, because this is a very big mistake that people do. You know, the, the people sometimes think that if you are, are vulnerable, that is a weakness. And in the contrary, that is a strength. When you show your vulnerability, when you show that your human side, that's the way you connect with the people. Because the people connect with the people being people, period. This is the only way you connect with people. The only
exactly.
show your expertise, your leadership, inspire others is being people, being empathic. So this is the thing that today I teach how the people can really discover that inner force that everybody has inside. But you have to take all your beliefs and retrain your brain, because this is the other thing. You retrain your brain. You maybe you have thought that you always have had there. Well, it's a personal choice. When you decided I want to change, when you take the decision I want to change, is your is a very personal decision.
And it is truly that when people, I think, realize that it is a choice for them, that they are not boxed into the way that they have lived for their entire lives. If they want to make that change, that they have that choice. And it only, I think it's so impactful when people, like you said, when you're not afraid to tell your story and show who you really are and what you have overcome, that you show other people that they can do the same. And that's just such a powerful tool. Um, so what has been the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself through it all?
Well, I'm not the same person I was before, because I discovered that today I express gratitude. I was a guy that I was not thinking gratitude. I took many things for granted. I thought that I was a lucky guy in period. I didn't know that that was something that was coming from God. Is a gift. And also I was a workaholic. I almost lost my family. I remember that when I was active in corporate America, uh, my wife called me. I never had time to talk with her. I never had time to talk because I was always busy. And now
Yeah.
I begging to have a 1 minute call. You
Yeah.
know, so that changed you the total person. So now you are here, and in some minutes now you are here. So 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 that is a proof that the change, the things can change in a minute in your life. And you will never be prepared for that because this is the other thing. Nobody's prepared.
No.
Even done all the training in the world. I was a guy coming from the oil and gas, and my colleagues too. So we were guys that really had training in strategic thinking, in crisis, and all this stuff. But we were not prepared for this.
No.
This is a situation that is over anything you can think. That happened when adversity, a real adversity, come in your life. The people are not prepared, and the first thing that you tend to do is to deny it. But the decision to move on is in you, and the decision to understand and get focused on what was going in you is in you, and the decision to begin to have positive thoughts, even in the dark moment, is in you. Everything is in you. It's a decision, but you have to take the decision.
That is so beautiful. Jose. That is, oh, so I have a global gratitude group. So I just want to finish off with with this one last question. So, because you brought gratitude into it just now. So my group is called Just One Little Thing. And I started Just One Little Thing because I was going through very deep grief. And so with my son and my husband, I said, if we can find just one little thing each day, we're going to be okay. And so each day at the dinner table, we would talk about what the one little thing would be. Sometimes it would be, I was brave enough to walk to the mailbox early in my grief, you know?
Mm.
Um, some days it would be that my broken heart continued to beat, or my son had a good day at school when he was really struggling after losing his brother. So I give people examples of that deep kind of gratitude. It's not at all about material things, right? It's
Yeah,
about those deep relationships and love and faith and hope. Those are the things that tethered us to life and really rescued us. So, for example, today I am grateful for a great night's sleep, a great cup of coffee, my two labs, Annie and Sam, who have been quiet as we have chatted. So thank you, God, for that, because I was a little concerned. And for my conversation with you, because I'm just so inspired and honored that you would tell us your story. So, what is your one little thing today?
for me, my one little thing today is that yesterday I was waiting for a meeting that I needed to have, that was like a kind of closing a cycle, because I learned that this had happened to me. Be, behind there is the hand of God. So we are part of His master plan. Everybody has a purpose.
Yeah.
Everybody has a plan. And I have been like connecting the dots. For me has been a discovery process. And let me tell you, I every time more and more surprised. Every time I go more and more, get more surprised how I have been connecting dots and dots, dots and dots. And now I can understand better all the process I went. Yesterday, I was expecting one of that dot happened yesterday, and I was in like in a wow moment.
Yeah.
It's like a wow. So, because you begin to see the miracles of God, that people don't see that, but they are there. They're all over. They're happening. They're happening. That when you begin to see it, is it, wow. So today I express gratitude for small things like awaking and see my dogs snoring. I have two dogs, and they snore a lot. So
Thank
see those two little guys snoring there, I laugh. For me, that is a gratitude.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think once you get the lesson of that, that everything is connected and there are no coincidences and there is a big plan.
Yes,
Um, that is, I mean, from difficulty, you gain that vision, but what a gift to receive.
yes.
Be able to walk through the rest of your life knowing that you are part of a bigger picture, bigger plan.
No, and then you can share it because, for example, today I'm part of a group in my church. It's a senior citizen group that is called Golden Heart. And when I share these people, they are in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and you share your so now, because everybody has a testimony. So and and when you put your testimony and you show how God was good with you, it gives you a strong it really is a strong connection. So yeah, today for me, I enjoy how I'm being connected to the dots, and things that even things that happened before in my life. But
Mhm.
with the book, I'm gonna talk about that, about things that I discovered that happened in my past that were part of the plan of God, preparing me for the event that I was going to have during my 5 years. I was being prepared. I didn't knew it, but I went through several events in my life that was like a preparation for the big event. So even the event, I was being trained, and I didn't know it, but and now I understand that I was being trained.
I totally agree with that and feel the same way about my own life is that it was a gradual preparation for the role that we play now. And that's something to be very thankful for.
I'm
Uh,
sorry.
no problem. So just before we close out this fantastic discussion, I'm so grateful to you. I want you to just remind our listeners, because I know they're gonna want to grab your book, just how they can connect with you and where they can find your book and read about your incredible journey.
Well, the most easy is go to my webpage. My
Mhm.
webpage is joseconnect.com. Is
Okay.
joseconnect.com. In my webpage, you can go and there's the links to the book there, or you can go directly to Amazon. I have it in Amazon. I have the Kindle version and the hard copy.
Yep.
Uh, and the paperback copy. You can go there in Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Both of them are the most popular. Barnes and Noble and Amazon, but I have it in Lulu and other platforms too. But in my webpage, you go Jose Connect, and then the first thing that will appear are going to be the book. There appear there too my coaching program. You can see all the programs that I have there and my speech because I have there several videos, the speech that I have done. As I typically are invited to go to events to talk about this because I had two speeches. One is that from captivity to freedom, and I
Yep.
have another one I created more for the leadership that is called the 4X growth tool to unleash your unbreakable spirit of leadership because this is something that I discovered that even I had leadership skills. I proved them during my captivity. That was
Yep.
it was a proof of life. I had to use it, and I use it, and I test, and it worked.
Thank you so much. So I encourage everybody to go to Jose's website, get the book on Amazon, and read about this incredible journey because you will be so inspired. And thank you for sharing your great gift with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, take care.